Well, everybody, let me get my hat straight. Got to get Spidey where he goes here. Put this right like this. Okay, that better? That's good. Okay, so here's where I say it. Ready? Welcome to the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. I'm Ray. I want to wish you all Merry Christmas. I have not had a chance to do this for the longest time. I'm getting to sit down now and say ho, 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 happy holidays from the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. Today, we're going to be reviewing some very new and very classic stuff. Actually, there's no classic stuff. I'm not going back very far in the vault. Everything that's coming up in the next few weeks is going to be brand new stuff. But we'll get to some classics soon, I'm sure. But I just want to say to everyone, Merry Christmas. This is a wonderful time of the year for friends and for family. And all of you, we may have never met, but I consider you friends. You're my electronic friends. You're digital people. And I just really appreciate you being there, and the support this community has for each other is just scary. So I just wanted to say thank you all. And now we begin the show. Oh, and I'm sorry. I really wanted to do another naughty version this year, another naughty special. But I've done a bunch of specials, and I really don't have a lot of naughty books. I could have crammed stuff in. I could have said, well, Power Mage can go here, and this can go here. But for me, I wanted to just kind of do a regular set of series. I'm done for a little while with specials, because I do want to do like a Russian special, because there are some really great Russian books out there that I want to highlight and show off. But that's a whole other ballpark, and we're getting to it. So in the meantime, Merry Christmas and welcome to the LitRPG Audiobook Show. I'm Ray. Get ready to listen. Okay, so the next book is Death's Mantle by Harmon Cooper. It's narrated by Andrea Parsnow, with a book length of 10 hours and 25 minutes.
Any day could have been Lucian North's last day on Earth. Doctor's visits, hospital trips, constantly being poked and prodded, a few scares, a ton of scars, a couple of bouts with depression, time in a recovery ward. The doctors had given him 1 year to live, and it had now been 2.5. At least Lucian North had a family that loved him. His brother Connor stopped by all the time to check on him. His mother visited daily with Tupperware containers full of food, oftentimes showing up with Lucian's favorite casserole. His family wanted him to move away from the dangerous neighborhood he lived in near Salem, Massachusetts. But Lucian was stubborn, insistent on living on his own. He liked his independence, however short-lived it may be. It made him feel like he'd actually make it through this, that maybe the doctors and cardiologists were wrong about his prognosis after all.
Well, Harmon Cooper has really upped his game. When I first saw this book, had elements from things like Sandman and Spawn, and books like On a Pale Horse and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I probably read the Tibetan Book of the Dead at least 150 times. As a field director, it's just one of those things that, even before I became a field director, it was one of those things you kind of gravitate towards. So I knew I was going to be a fan. And the only thing I was really unfamiliar with, again, this is from the blurb, is the anime show Parasite. I'd never heard of it, never seen it, never watched it, and that's only because I rarely watch television anymore. In fact, the book does an incredible homage, or homage, if you want to get schnaughty about it, to the first Incarnations of Immortality book, which is a novel by Piers Anthony. On a Pale Horse is one of those books that I read as a kid, and I was like, holy shit, holy crap, this is an incredible book. The rest of the series doesn't quite live up to the first book. It gets really ridiculous. And Piers Anthony, as I diverge, or as I digress here, this is how I do this. He's one of these authors that has like really great starts. So if you ever read like his Xanth novels, the Xanth books are really good up until like book 6 or 7. and then they just kind of recycle their thoughts, and they just do this stupid repetition stuff over and over and over again. And Incarnations of Immortality, Bink, the MC, becomes death by killing death. And it's a little crazy how things work, but it's an incredible concept. There are so many incarnations. There's 7 of them. Mother Nature, time, death, war, those sorts of things, evil. And people all take those roles up for periods of time. Now, here, like I said, with Cooper's book, I saw the similarities right away, because Bink and Lucian both pull guns on death. Now, granted, the two tales are incredibly different, but the one scene told me that Cooper really valued that series as much as I did. As much as I say the other books weren't on par with the first one, it's just because the first book was just so well done and so well written, and the other ones really, really were hard concepts to kind of work together. They didn't all work out as well as you would hope. And I think he didn't really plan on actually getting 7 books out of it. I think it was the first book put out, and pow, it became the Incarnations of Immortality, Septup, whatever it is later on. But, yeah, you can just see Cooper loves it. And if you think that I don't respect Neil Gaiman's Sandman, wait, I'm going to move my little death buddy here for a second. Let me show you something. Let me show you my tattoo for you guys who listen on here. That is Neil Gaiman's Sandman, which is what he's referencing. Sandman was a series for Vertigo Comics by DC that ran for a number of years that Neil Gaiman wrote. He wrote, I think, 75 issues exactly, which featured the Endless, which were 7 incarnations, death, dream, delirium, desire, destruction, and destiny, and despair. And see how I rattle those off? That's how well I know that series. Death in that series is not something you should be afraid of. In fact, death, unless you are even if you are the most horrible person in the world, she kind of loves everybody. And I mean that in the most respectful way. Death loves everybody. She doesn't want to kill people. She's not about harming them or terrifying them or scaring them. She's just about making them transition from one place to another. And it's a really brilliantly done concept. And I see that here too, especially with Lucian. Lucian has a lot of respect for people, and it bothers him that the actions he takes leads to people's deaths later on. And it actually kind of molds his character to go other directions. And I've also been reading Spawn since McFarlane left Spider-Man. So, I can see here where Harmon is getting his influences from. And the point is that these are only influences. This story kind of stands as all on its own, all by itself. I'm sorry to say that it stands out all on its own, too. And I'm not sorry, but it's an outstanding novel. I'm going to just be frank. I'll come out later here and tell you a little bit what I think about it. But I have been a big fan of Cooper, not Hooper, but Cooper. Since I first heard Quantum Muse fast talk his way out of a time loop. And I have enjoyed every book he's put out since. But, I have to say, this is by far, unquestionably, his best book ever. The whole story is amazing. The concept blew me away. Like I said, I love the concept, the mechanics, the characters, and the MacGuffin that actually drives the story regarding Lucian's brother. I can kind of see where someone might think that Lucian is overpowered, but in the overall scheme of things, he is fairly powerless, and it bites him in the ass constantly, and just reminds him how weak he is. So I sat and listened to this book in a single run-through in one day, and I was fortunate because I had a really horrible day, as in I got up at 5 a.m., and I drove consistently the entire day in my car going from one place to another. So I had nothing to do but listen to this book, and it was 9 hours long, and it was perfect because I got done just as it was getting done. So, it was a really great compliment for my day. As crappy as my day was, this book worked out perfectly for me. So I listened to it straight through, and I would have regardless. I think no matter what I was doing, I would have listened to this book. But it only left me wanting more. My only complaint about the book is that Cooper did not talk to his friendly neighborhood funeral director. This guy, me. For the scene in which Lucian actually attends his own funeral, and I'm not spoiling anything. I think you realize if you die and you're hanging around and no one can see you, you're going to go to your own funeral and see what happens. There was a few things that, as a funeral director and someone who deals with funerals all the time, I noticed they were a little bit inconsistent and they weren't right. And now again, I'm not trying to beat, Mr. Harmon up at all. Just as an example, no one is buried in coffins anymore. If you are, it's by choice, and it's hand-built somewhere. We sell caskets. I think 99% of the nation is buried in caskets. And then there's other people that are, done in other ways. But if you're buried, it's going to be in the casket. You can have ecopods and that sort of stuff, but it's going to be in a casket. There's a big difference between a casket and a coffin. And there was also things about like the arrival of the family that as I was listening to this, I was like, nope, that's not right. That's not right. But for unless you've attended a lot of family funerals or you're in the business like me, I don't think you would realize anything was off. But this is a point of professional pride for me. The story, however, left me absolutely speechless and wanting more. And I've said that 3 times now, I think. And all I can say is to Harmon, please bring it on, because we really need more of this story. I need more Lucian. I need to see more of his world, his whole struggle in the afterworld. I need to see what's going on there. The book is just incredible. It's about a guy who, like I say, he pulls a gun on death. Death kind of takes him under his wing and says, you're going to become death too, because there's multiple deaths. Why not? Why would one death exist when there's a bazillion people on this planet alone? He's not taking care of everybody. And these deaths find out that they are actually supposed to kill off parasites that feed on human beings. And that's their job. Their job is to take care of parasites. Some parasites do something, some do other things. And the ones that they really focus on are the ones that keep you from dying when you're supposed to. Everybody's given a certain time, whether it's 1 year or 100 years, it's a lifetime. And when your time comes, you're supposed to die. And the parasites keep you alive so they can feed on you. And that is one of those things that the Grim Reapers are meant to do, is wipe out those parasites at all costs so that these people can pass on and go to the next life. And that's the story really boiled down to most of it. I mean, there's a lot going on. More than that. I mean, that's just the crux of it. That's just like the very intro kind of thing. But it's so interesting. And I liked especially how, like, Lucian, even though he's not in the game, and I'm going to just spit that right out, he's not in the game. He incorporates gaming mechanics into his magic as a Grim Reaper so that he can better understand it and operate it better. Grim Reapers are nice little guys. And he then makes himself stronger by his game knowledge. He does different things, things that none of the other Reapers have done thus far. And I even think that if somebody from his generation, they were born the same day and they died the same day, I don't know if they would do the exact same things as him, because he was a gamer. He likes to play video games. And honestly, if I have to have a nit to pick, it's just the fact that we actually get scenes of him playing video games. And I just had to wonder why that was there. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything about it. But I really, if I had to say I didn't need it, that would be the only thing I didn't need. I don't need to see Lucian playing to prove he's a gamer and getting the game notifications and seeing what happens when he goes in. And there are some nice shout outs. Dave Wilmarth, Charles Dean, Andrea Parsnow actually gets a shout out with Parsnow's Pub. So it's nice in that video game world that he plays in, having that come up. but it really wasn't necessary for the story. It's a nice addition, but that was it. But it allows him to think differently than the other Reapers. So they're all old school. Like, they're not, if they carry guns, the guns they carry aren't like automatics. They're not Kalashnikovs. They're not, M16s. They're probably packing like muskets, or they're carrying, 6 guns from the West, whatever era they're from. And he updates a lot of stuff, and he comes up with some really cool concepts. The Indra bots are really cool. And the crows are awesome. So I enjoyed a lot of the things that he did with this story. I mean, I don't know how he came up with this, but he was on the right stuff that day. The book is really good. Now, you know what? I'm not even going to talk about Andrea Parsnow and her narration. I'm not going to do it. It's getting to a point. I'm absolutely sick of having to tell you how utterly brilliant she is. I mean, honestly, really, her talent, her vocal skill, emotional infusion, her acting, they're all off the charts. You know that. Blah, blah, blah. You've heard it every time I talk about Andrea Parsnow. And don't you just hate it when someone is so good at their job, so good at entertaining you, that you literally burn out talking about them over and over again, about how great they are, how amazing, how brilliant? Don't you just hate that? I do. I hate bragging on people. I hate talking them up, because it's just not right. I mean, how many times do I have to say that I felt like Lucien's pain when he was yelling at Daenerys about his brother's plight, or it was so real, or that she added so much power and speed to the fight scenes that I actually had a tentacle kind of whip past my ear. Too many times. Too many times do I have to do that. So, Andrea, geez, can you just kind of let up so you don't make most narrators look bad by comparison just because? I mean, honestly, it's like comparing a gold bar to a mud pie. I hate to say it like that. Not fair. It's not fair at all. But seriously, though, Andrea, you are just amazing, and I loved your work here. I will say that I every time I listen to you, you've improved. I like a lot of the stuff you've done with like Power Mage, and those will be reviews coming up real soon. And Swing Shift, those books were brilliantly done by you. And here I want to actually say this. I liked hearing you narrate the parts rather than voicing it. As much as I like it the other way too, that was a nice change after coming off those books. Like, I listened to Power Mage and I listened to Swing Shift, and it was intense how you did that. And I thought, holy crap, that had to have been the hardest thing in the world, to not use your own voice for anything in the book practically in comparison. And when I finally got to hear and listen to this, I thought, wow, she didn't do it this time, and I'm glad, because as much as I liked it in the other thing, it was nice just hearing your voice again. So I'm just going to say, incredible job all around with both of you, Harmon, Andrea. This book was just great. I loved it. I recommend it to everybody I know. So just check out this book. My final score, 8.5 stars. It's a cool book, intense narration, which equals mind-blowing storytelling. Get this book. Ho, 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 okay. So, Reborn Apocalypse, Book 1, by L.M. Kerr, narrated by Adam Stubbs, and this has a book length of 15 hours and 8 minutes.
The battle is lost, a calm voice spoke aloud, full of sorrow and loss. Humanity has fallen. Shin Hopefell lifted up a chipped and damaged golden sword, raising it above his head for a brief moment before he plunged it downward. The blade left a trail of golden light as it slashed down, ripping apart the enormous brown boulder that had just been lobbed at him. The split parts of the boulder slammed down onto the ground past him, throwing up a small cloud of dirt and dust. Shin's aching body shook from the force of the deflection, his tired green eyes looking out at the hopeless scene before him. It was a slaughter. They were standing on a large broken stone plateau. Tens of thousands of figures could be seen battling on this plateau, swords clashing against spears.
So, I'm going to tell you right up front, this book almost threw me into a right anxious fit. I actually, as I started this book, I envisioned the moment that I sat down to do this review, I was going to rail against it so hard. Because basically the first chapter is practically identical, and I mean identical, to Cameron Milan's Tower of Heaven novel. So close, it's pretty scary. Now, and I seriously, I don't believe for a second that he has not read, the Tower of Heaven book, because the things that happen there, it's almost cut and paste. The way things went. I mean, changes made, but you could almost say, look, this is exactly it. And then the rest, after that first chapter, the premise, it's kind of like Back to the Future. How Marty goes over here and things change. And it's the same thing here. Milan's book goes this way, and, this book goes this way. And there in the middle shall they meet. They shall not meet anywhere. Because I was really getting ready to make accusations of plagiarism, but I kept listening. And I don't even know what anybody else has said, but I'm sure like Ramon had to have said something about it in his review, along the lines of this is possibly plagiarized, or it felt like it was plagiarized. I don't know, but to me, I definitely felt like it was a plagiarism issue right off the bat. And then thankfully it diverged so much that it is clearly not a plagiarized novel. In fact, as much as I like Towers of Heaven, I almost think this is a better story in some aspects. It works really, really well. And the MC is interesting, and he kept playing the I know the future card really close to his vest. So there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to yell at Mr. Kerr. I'm not going to scream about this because, like I say, as much as I think it was just a very good starting point that maybe he thought he had, because again, I can't believe he just wrote that up and it was so close to what happened in Towers of Heaven. Could be, I don't know, but it didn't feel that way. But if he did, then my gosh, that's really scary. I mean, it's just one of those things. But as I said, it starts off in the vein of Towers of Heaven, but then it neatly shifts off into a book of its own. The book is well-paced, smartly written, has really cool progression powers, and is draped in an appropriately apocalyptic setting. Now, I don't even feel like the MC was overpowered. I know that, like, in the Towers of Heaven book, people were saying, like, Jason is overpowered. And I keep saying, well, he's really not. None of these people are overpowered. Their abilities and skills and all that comes from knowledge that no one else has. And that's not overpowered. That's cheat. This is a cheat. The main characters cheat. They're cheats. They know things that no one else knows. And that's like one of the things I like about like Tower of Heaven is how Jason wants to share his knowledge. And it's kind of the same thing in the other book too. This one, the Apocalypse book, but it's not in the same vein. And I think that the MC here is a little slicker in how he goes about doing things and how he does things and what he knows. And he's trying really hard to build his relationships up quickly so that he can get himself, where he needs to be in order to save the world. And that's all there is to it. Like I said, I just don't feel like he was overpowered though. I think it was just that he had retained skills, that he had trained for before the clock had reset. So, like if you have knowledge about stuff, then it's going to carry over because his memory didn't get erased. So anything he had trained for that required knowledge or skill, he still had that ability. So, what could have come across as imbalance simply just played well with the character in a story. And I think that he was hardcore and was a font of knowledge alone that gave him an edge. His attitude, he's hardcore and he knew things. You have those two things together where you won't give up, you won't quit, and you know what's going to happen you can't lose. And so, like I say, the book is really, really well done. I wanted this book to be longer. I thought that it had a lot of potential, and as I was listening to it, like I said, I was on a roller coaster because at first I was so PO'd. I was like, how dare, Mr. Kerr? How dare you do such a... wait, this is much better than what I thought. It has nothing to do with any of the other stuff. It's not even similar to the other... Okay, I get it. And so, like I said, I was on this roller coaster of highs and lows, and it was really good. And like I say, I just appreciated every second that I got to listen to this book. Stubbs really narrates it well. He manages to convey everything that Kerr put into the story, plus a little bit more, I think. And it is that extra bit that makes a really good narrator stand out. Personally, I think Stubbs shines here. And again, while he is not super upper echelon, I think he's at the upper echelon point. I enjoyed him a lot. And I'd have to hear him a few more times before I had to make a really good decision to say whether, he's like super, super amazing. But I think he did a really good job with this book, and I was impressed. My final score is going to be 8.3 stars. And I know this is probably a short review, but I just want to just kind of say the book is like Tower of Heaven. If you like Tower of Heaven, you'll love this book. Give it a shot. I had absolutely no expectations going in, and I was angry when I thought it was the ripoff. But I eventually came to embrace the MC, the story, the setting. Pardon me. And I can't wait for more. I just think that, like I say, it's got a lot of, how do I put this? Points that make it stand out from Towers of Heaven. And it really shines in those moments. Like I say, the MC is just really cool. And his companion, everything works in this book. And so, 8.3 stars. I'm probably giving it a little bit less because I still don't like how the first part of the book was like Towers of Heaven. Because just to me, just do something a little bit different. Don't do it like point for point, use it as a springboard, but don't use it as point for point kind of change. But 8.3 stars. So, talking about Reborn Apocalypse, here's Tower of Heaven's Book 2. Written by Cameron Milan, narrated by Steve Campbell. And this has a book length of 7 hours and 38 minutes.
In the alternate timeline that Jason had lived through, the 30th floor of the tower was considered the end of the lower floors and the beginning of the middle floors. Even though it wasn't that high up, it had remained filled with people until the end times. Besides the dungeons that provided endless gear and materials, the war between the six kingdoms raged on. On the 30th floor, residents of the tower were separated into two groups, peasants and nobles. The peasants were allocated land on which they grew crops. They provided their kingdom with food for a small profit. The only other option they had was to become a soldier and wage war against the other kingdoms. The nobles were residents of the tower who were considerably wealthy. They generally held important positions in the kingdom, like owning a notable business or serving the king as a minister. The war between the six kingdoms would continue until they were eventually wiped out by monster hordes. In the end, no kingdom was able to unite the floor. Jason planned to rectify this now that he had returned to the past.
I have to say that Cameron Milan, has come a very long way in a very short period of time. Most of his earlier works were involved with a lot of OP characters duking it out with the villain, who was, generally getting away with being, super strong. And then when he is caught and he's stopped or almost stopped, he has a super sneaky power that lets him escape. Like Desire 2, I almost didn't want to keep reading anything because it just got to a point seeing the super orc destroy everybody at the last second or escape at the last second because he was so powerful. He had new abilities that just popped up all the time, and I thought, the kid, the guy, I should say, not the kid, but he's writing and he has like a good grasp of storytelling, but it almost comes across like he's writing some anime story like Dragon Ball Z, you know, where they evolutions get you stronger and stronger, and I don't know, you know, the power ups and stuff. That was just, it was a Dragon Ball Z kind of feel to it, and it was way overpowered for me because it was kind of like, well, I can rip a planet in half. Well, I can destroy a whole solar system. That kind of like one-upsmanship every single time. I've stuck with Cameron Milan for a while. You know, I think I've probably reviewed everything he's done as far as I can tell. But this book series, he has finally kind of come into his own. It's funny how it just took him a little while to get his footing. But now he's writing an OP character that actually fits and is still not strong enough to do what he needs to be done. So, you know, finally he's figured out the formula, I think. He's very well detailed and planned ahead, because this is not something like I'm right by the seat of my pants. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I've said this before, but like just as an example, in my story that's in the Tales of Dungeons, I have a story about dungeon cores, and all I knew was I wanted to have a nature dungeon, and I wanted to have some element of undead. I sat down and started writing, and I just knew there was going to be a breeze blowing through the dungeon, and from that point forth, I went through and wrote the whole thing off in one shot. Splat, the same thing with Essence. I knew exactly how I wanted it to start, and I knew that he continually got splatted. That was it. I had nothing else, no ideas what to do. It was kind of just like, here's where the story takes me. That is not the way, I could never write a book like this. That is not the way I write stuff, for the way that Milan does. Because Milan has really got things detailed out. He has got so much crammed into this. Like, there's aspects of this that I'm just shocked, because it's stuff I've never heard of in LitRPG at all. And that's a really good thing. Where book one was good, you know, and that's why I say book one was so good, I kind of flipped out over Reborn Apocalypse when I started it. Thankfully, the similarities were superficial, and I was able to enjoy both series as separate entities. But Milan ends up doing a few things that he ups the ante in book two, not the least of which is that there are sudden changes to the timeline. Now, I know what you're going to do. You're going to say, hey, you know, there were changes in the first book. Yes, there were, but they were minor changes that had no effect in the overall world. You know, here, you know, I'm not going to say what the changes are, but the writing is smart, because if there are no changes that are made in this book worldwide, then clearly, you know, Jason is not making the progress that he needs to make. And finally, we see Jason having an impact, and he is making progress. Even though it's a little disconcerting, because now he may not have all the future knowledge that he thinks he does. Before, he knew everything was happening, and he just said, well, I've got to get up here and beat this and have this happen. Now, before you yell at me and say, hey, we had a change in with Jason's dad, like I said, that was a minor ripple. It had no impact on the original timeline whatsoever, other than Jason. So what happened to his dad in book one was only relevant to Jason. It had no other ripples throughout the worlds, you know, the cosmos, or even in the tower or on Earth, other than Jason, you know, suffered a little bit. Now here, you know, we do have this big impact. So that was really great. And we get to see Jason succeed finally at what he's trying to do. He actually has made significant strides in his quest to improve and change things. So that was like great. It was just brilliant, and I was happy to see it happen finally. There are a ton of great fight scenes, and I really enjoyed the face-off with the demon. And all I can say is that Milan has very clearly planned things out. He is prepared ahead of time, and so that random events are not so random as they first appear to be. The book does a really good job of growing the characters, adding some more characters into the group, and setting up a system in which even the furniture that is in your house can add to your abilities in the field elsewhere. So I fully expect, and just to give you a heads up, there to be a fifth realm. There's third, and now there's a fourth realm. I think there's going to be a fifth realm that Jason discovers. I think that's big news. And I think that some of the biggest news, and I don't know if maybe spoiler, so don't listen to this next thing if you don't want to, but they know that there's an architect to the tower and that the architect is watching them for a reason. And that is a really cool revelation as well. Either way, I'm going to just say this. If you like book 1, you're going to love book 2. It is leaps and bounds a better story, and it is better storytelling from Milan than his last book. And his last book was great. And like I say, he's just been making some magnificent progress. One book after another, he's just improved. And I'm really impressed with the stuff he's written. Towers of Heavens is a really good series, and I'm enjoying it. Steve Campbell is the captain of our ship. Fly, Captain, ride on a mystery ship. Yeah, I know I don't know the lyrics, but anyway. He keeps a very steady course, no matter the conditions of the sea. Campbell has quickly inserted himself, and I'm being frankly honest here, into the genre with good reason. He is fun, and it's probably the biggest vibe, and that's probably the biggest vibe that I got when I listened to him, is that he is enjoying the story as much as we, the listeners, are. I mean, you can just tell he's like, holy crap, that's really cool. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that Jason just did this. Or, all that just kind of gushes out all over this story, that he's having as much fun as I am as I listen by telling me that story. And that is rare, because I know narrators who are very, very professional and they sound fantastic, but they don't bring that love of what they're doing. And I know a long time ago, I got yelled at by some people for saying that there was a narrator who had absolutely no love for their story. None. And I still stand by that. I still stand by the fact that there was no love for the story being told. It just felt like they could have cared less what happened. And it was very, very meh as they read stuff. Here, you don't get that with Steve. I mean, Steve, you can trust Steve to be a fan just as much as you are. So, that's the nice thing, is like he's out there cheering on Cameron Milan, and he's cheering us on, and he's like, go readers, here's the greatest time ever. Oh yeah, we're gonna go do this, and that's the whole vibe I get with Steve Campbell. Not that I'm not saying he doesn't do other stuff great, but because he's a good narrator, he's got great voices, he does different things. It's his enthusiasm for what he's doing that kind of oozes off the page. He doesn't have a page. It kind of just comes across the airwaves, because it's pretty powerful and it's very enjoyable. But he is just, like I say, he's just the biggest fan in the world. And I really appreciate that. He's just one of my faves. Everything he does, differentiating the characters, making the action leap off the screen or out of the panel or whatever it is, he really puts things into the theater of the mind. The way he describes it and talks it out, it's very, very much like watching a movie in your head. And I'm not going to sing Miss Saigon's movie in my mind. I'm sorry. But again, there's a reason why Campbell was one of my favorite narrators, and it's because of his enthusiasm more than anything. He just loves it. Final score is 8.3 stars. A lot of growth, improvements, and challenges. My only regret is that sometimes we jump ahead in the story or have things trimmed down. There are certain towers that we don't get a lot of for the sake of speed. And I totally get this, because if there's, I don't know how many layers there are to the tower, but if there's 100 layers, they haven't even reached level 40 yet. And, that you got so much time you got to tell a story. And I don't think you need to drag out like a series like this for 8 books. I think 4 books, maybe 5 books at most. Personally, I'm always a big fan of trilogies. But I'm just saying, here we are. This is where we're at. And we just need to basically just, get through it. So, he is jumping around a little bit, but that's just kind of like the way it works. My favorite scene in the book was the Stairway to Heaven challenge, where they were climbing step by step by step by step. But I also appreciated the 15th circle fight that he had with himself. Jason, when he fought himself in that 15th circle, when he kind of figured things out, I just think that, those are some of the best scenes in the novel, and I enjoyed a bunch of them, fighting the demon and just stuff like that. It's really got moments that you just go, wow, that was really cool. So I see great things for in the future for this series. Just 8.3 stars for this, but it's going to get better faster. Well, the next book is my Soundbooth Spotlight. So get ready for Morgana, Everybody Loves Large Chest, Book 4. Written by Nevin Iliev, narrated by Jeff Hayes and Annie Ellicott, with a book length of 17 hours and 43 minutes.
Now then, he said, clapping his hands together expectantly. Let's see this peculiar beastie you found. Kira got off her seat and placed the beastie on the ground. The box continued to remain motionless, even after it was freed from its captor's grasp. Rather than ask questions, Jeremy grabbed onto it and forced its lid open. The creature finally started squirming and whining as it had before, but didn't resist or make trouble while the gnome inspected its mouth cavity. It wouldn't have been able to stop the guy even if it tried anything anyway.
Teeth like that of an herbivore, tongue similar to a frog's.
Jeremy let go of the box, which closed its jaws and shuffled around a bit, making some mild yipping sounds in the process. The gnome took off his leather glove and poked at its mouth and teeth with an unprotected finger, seemingly trying to provoke it. It didn't bite or attack the gnome, though it gave his finger a few licks before backing off while making retching sounds.
So it kind of breaks my heart to say this, but this was a good book. Why does that break my heart? Because up until now, this series has been utterly amazing, incredible, mind-blowing. And I think this is one of the outstanding aspects of the concept, well, I should say, let me reword that. I think one of the outstanding concepts of the series was Boxy as this semi-clueless but lucky as hell monster who has no compassion or empathy, was really what drew me to the books. However, since Boxy has gotten upgraded from a greater mimic to a doppelganger, things have kind of gone from feral to just brash villain, into a clever imitator, and it just doesn't have the same vibe for me. And I know it's Boxy, but some of the best parts in the earlier books, is just he is so clueless and so brutal. There is absolutely no sympathy from this creature whatsoever. He does whatever it takes for him to get stronger, and he loves to eat. So he murders. He is a murder hobo on speed or crack or whatever. He's just a murder hobo. Now, initially, I have to be honest with you, I hated how the book started. Hated it. But later, I saw that I was very cleverly played by Iliev in a bit of classic chess play. Yes, indeed, that utterly destroyed my mental game. So, as clever as it was, I still missed the ferocious, bumbling, inconsiderate mimic. I completely get that Boxy had to evolve. Or did he? I don't know. I really don't know if he had to or not. I mean, it's hard to say. But the transformation from, it was a perfect transformation. And I don't know if that should have worked like that, from murderous but clueless monster to clever imitator. It was just too abrupt. And personally, I don't like the new version of Boxy. Now, perhaps had I started off with this version, if, Boxy had just been a doppelganger from day one, and this had been book one, I'd have probably been praising the book a lot, saying, man, Iliev was really brilliant, and I love the manipulative, underhanded stuff, because that's me. But I didn't. And so and here's the truth. I do, like I just said, I tend to gravitate towards manipulative characters. Iago from Othello, for example, is probably my favorite all-time literary character. The machinations of that man is overwhelming. It's just overwhelming. It just blows me away. I love characters that lie and manipulate others. I don't know why. I don't know why. Con men carry a lot of weight in my world. I just respect con men to just degrees. It's just scary sometimes. I admire and respect their audacity, their intellect, but having Boxy live like that just did not fit the monster that I know and love. And this is why. I mean, Boxy was never clever and able. His biggest issue was he couldn't fit in with any other race because he had no clue how to act. And I get that, Snack was helping him, figure stuff out. She'd been training him and coaxing him. Maybe if we'd had a lot of that interspersed with like Snack trying to show Boxy how to empathize or, pretend to empathize, I should say. But whatever, we don't get that. And it just kind of says, well, they've been practicing. And I needed that to help me do this transition a lot. I needed it so bad. And like I say, the book is really good. It's really good, but it's just not my monster. And I don't want to sound crazy when I say that. But there were certain scenes that I kept thinking, well, finally, this is Boxy. Like where he wipes out like these hobos that live underground or he's doing other things. Those scenes, 100% that was Boxy. But as the mimic, or the doppelganger, it just did not feel like him. It just did not. Now, overall, in spite of all that I just said, I really did love this book. I don't want you to think I didn't like it. Again, my favorite bits for every one of the books preceding this up till now have been the phone calls to Demons R Us, the hell. And while I really wanted to get more, so that was really like the best part of the book for me. I really wanted more at the end of the epilogue with the dryads. That was hilarious. I just really wanted more though than just the epilogue, because the epilogue worked and it was actually funny. And why was it funny and why did it work? It's because it shows the impact that Boxy has on the Elven Nation hundreds of years after he's gone. It's hundreds of years later. So Boxy's very clearly, unless something magical happens and he gets extended life later on in the series, he's dead and gone for a long, long time. And yet his fingerprints are all over what happens to the elves. Very obvious, very clear. And it was hilarious. And it was Boxy 100%. And it just shows you how oblivious, unwitting, and uncaring, he is, throughout the whole series, but especially when it came to the Tree Girls. So the end result was more of what I was expecting from a mimic rather than a calculating doppelganger. And that was really the whole thing. The ending felt more like something Boxy would do, even though Boxy wasn't there. He was long gone by that point. It really felt like that was where Boxy existed in the book for me. 90% of the time, Boxy was not Boxy. And it sounds crazy to say that because he's Boxy the entire time, but no. Now, I do want to, like I say, I want to repeat this. It is a really good book. It is fun. It is funny. It does have humor. It does have a lot of action. And it does have a lot of doppelgangery kind of things. And it was enjoyable. It is not the level that I expected, though, from this. And I guess I'm just going to have to get used to Boxy being no longer a box. So, Jeff Hayes, I just continue to be, in awe of his narration powers. No one could do this series the way that Jeff handles it. And, he only adds more to the story itself as he does this. Like I say, especially like the Demons Are Us scenes, the way he handles that, it is just brilliant. Jeff is a one-man army going to war. It just makes me believe that an insensitive monster can actually feign concern and empathy, even though I don't think that Boxy could. Jeff makes me think that. He makes me believe, okay, Boxy's been practicing and Boxy can do it. He does make it work, but again, I just look back and cognitively it doesn't work for me. But during the story, Jeff makes it kind of happen. He pulls it off. Jeff is just, I don't know how to say it. He's incredible. He's always going to be my number one narrator, regardless, just because this is the series that I first heard him. Honestly, he brought me into LitRPG. He broke me into LitRPG, broke me into this whole series. And, and I just don't see anybody else being able to do this. And it's brilliant the way he does it. And the book is really good. But my final score is going to be 8 stars. I think what the book is missing is that the time that Boxy actually practiced being humanoid. Had it had that, it would have been way better, knock it out of the park kind of thing. But I really needed to see Boxy struggle a lot because he is so smooth and flawless in his persona that it will fool you, believe me. And I needed to see him, or it, because Boxy's still an it. He's not gendered. I needed to see it fail spectacularly, and rather than successfully imitate some fully crafted persona effortlessly, because it does not seem like Boxy struggles a lot. There is a little bit of internal monologue with Boxy where he's talking about things, and you can see he sounds like he's struggling, but I didn't see it. But the story is really good. It was just lacking a few essential things that made Boxy the perfect inhuman MC. But I still recommend it. And like I say, this is an 8. It's a good book. It's a good book. And I do recommend this a lot. It's just not to the level of the other 3. And again, that's fine. You're allowed to stumble or whatever every so often. And even if it continues, at least next time I've kind of girded my loins. Yeah, loins. I girded them. Yes. From the issues that I have now. So with this, I just say I'm better prepared going into it next time, seeing Boxy as a doppelganger, but I would also rather prefer getting the Mimic back and just being the Mimic, because that's the best part of the whole series. Anyway, 8 stars. That's not bad. Well, folks, that's our show. I hope you've had a very happy holiday, or you're about to have a happy holiday. I know that this is a rough time of year for a lot of people. And I am the first person to, disavow Christmas for encroaching on the other holidays. The second Halloween is done. Christmas overrides Thanksgiving. It is in there, knocking stuff off the shelves, saying, out the way, we got to get on the shelves and go. Black Friday is right after Thanksgiving. But Christmas is really a special time. I think that the LitRPG community is just an intensely powerful community, and it's filled with great people. And I just want to say Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays if Christmas isn't your thing. And just know, when I say Merry Christmas, I am a believer in Christmas. It's my holiday just as much as Halloween is. And so I'm wishing you, on my behalf, happy feelings for the year. Whether you're Jewish or whatever, it doesn't matter. My Merry Christmas is just goodwill towards men. And so, I do want to say thank you all for listening. You know where to find us at Stitcher, Google Play, all that stuff. I'm not going to go through it this time. This is just me saying thank you for being here and listening and really, really making everything fantastic. I love doing this. And this has just been a really rough year for me. Health issues, struggles at home, struggles at work, busyness, just keeping things up all in general in my life. Getting this done has been so hard sometimes. And I know I should be out every week. And I really tried for a long time to do this every single week. And I just haven't had a chance to do it. Especially this month, the last 2 months, I should say, I've been periodically coming out, and I'm right now I'm recording ahead of time so right now I'm two ahead. Hopefully I'll be 4 shows ahead, so that no matter what, I can always be a little bit more. But I do want to say thank you to Ramon and to Jeff at Soundbooth for giving me this opportunity. I treasure the community that is built up around the show, the people that support me and support us. You guys are all great, and again, it's just time for me to say Merry Christmas. God bless everyone. Have a very happy holiday. And if you need something, if you have anything at all that I can help you with, never hesitate to ask. And one last thing. If you didn't get a personalized Christmas card from me, it's because I didn't have your address. So sorry. Maybe you want to give me your address next year. Because I do personalized Christmas cards. It's one of the things I like to do for people. Anyway, from the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast, Merry Christmas.